Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Oh my goodness, you know what we're going to do this evening? Everything is changing so fast. The weather has changed dramatically. Chilly, frosty conditions up in the Northeast this week. How that's going to affect our fishing. We're going to start over in Paradise in Costa Rica to get a quick marlin report because I know they've been chewing over there at Nosara this week. Then we'll come to the Northeast Florida, start our way all the way down the state, find out how the sailfish bite is in South Florida, come around through the Keys, up the West Coast, and bring you the latest of what's happening on the water. This week and every week, Florida Sportsman Action Spotters brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum, always the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage, and by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids, you need to check out youngboats.com. Let's get it rolling. It's time to go to Paradise and find out what's happening where they never wear jackets in Nosara, Costa Rica.
Okay.
Craigie, how are you?
I'm good, man. How about you?
Good. Is your fleet in for the evening?
No.
No, they're still fishing?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good. Just now coming in right now.
I was going to say, people forget it's a
evening.
lot different time over there. I was dying to know
Yeah.
if there were any marlin flags flying over there tonight.
Well, there was night before that, night before that, night before that, night before that, night before that.
How about that? That's pretty good.
You know?
How many?
Yeah. Well, there was 2 days we had two and singles the rest of the time.
That's good. All blues, or do you get any stripes? What'd you get?
Now we had two stripes on the Explorer on, Ricky, I want to say Thursday or Friday. Yeah, Thursday or Friday.
Uh-huh.
And then one other day last week. I don't remember.
All right, so you had stripes and blues. Any big Dorado?
Yeah. Oh, tons of them. We haven't had one below 20.
Woo!
Yeah, but we haven't had one over really about 34, 35.
So they've all been 20 to 35?
Yeah, every day we've had the first day we had a 26, a 22, and a 24. Then we had a 28, a 24, a 21. And then we had like a 26, 28, and 24. It's crazy. I mean, they're all just like bookends.
Gotcha.
But it seems like the bigger ones, the better numbers are a little further offshore, about 12, 15 miles.
I got you. Well, that's good fishing, buddy.
But there's some inshore that are being caught too. They just kind of one or two here, one or two there. On day before yesterday, we had I think 5 or 6 now, Ricky, and 2 of them were doubles.
Oh, that's
and
good.
we lost, 2 or 3.
Are you finding things floating? Are you finding things floating, Craig, or are they just in open water?
They're just all over the place, man.
Mm-hmm.
They're all over the place. Good water, but there's some water that's not real super duper blue. It's still producing fish.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not as many, and maybe not quite as big, but doggone good fish. I mean, everybody down here is catching them.
Gotcha.
There's nobody that's not.
The yellowfin's biting at all?
Yeah, we caught one the other day was 34, but it was like 12 to about 15. We found it on a porpoise pod, but there was mahi on the porpoise pod too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and Fico on the Discover had a marlin in there earlier that day.
But let me ask you, if people have never seen it, do you ever get tired of looking at that porpoise pod? Is that not gorgeous?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I know.
People in the Atlantic think they have seen porpoise pods before. They are incorrect.
Ricky, one of the very first days I fished down here, we tracked one day. We were in Avianis and we came south, and we didn't quite make it we made it to an area called Juntos.
Okay.
And it's right before Oceanal, but it was 15 plus miles long and 8 miles wide, or more. More. We never could find the head of it, and it was pretty much all along that coast. And there was yellowfin in it like crazy.
I'll bet there was.
I was on a buddy of mine's boat that later became one of my best friends down here. In fact, he still is. And I put, back then we didn't put baits out. We put a little, bucktail jig out or a little bit of color out stuff. And I rigged a little bitty chugger head, pulled the hook up a little closer, lightened up the leader on it, and I put it out. I made the rig twice in a row, and it didn't stay out more than 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And it was getting just the dog knocked out of it and rip off line and then break it off. But we couldn't stop him. But, it was just kind of testing him. It was my buddy's boat, and that was a lot of tackle to lose.
Yep, I understand. Cap, we appreciate it ever so much. I got a question for you. All right?
Yep.
And I need a one-word, I want a month. If people want to take advantage of the best fishing and the most stable weather month, what month do they need to pick?
I would say, to narrow it down, I would say between, November, spring, it stops in the full moon in late December, early January, and it goes into summer pattern, but it's a gradual, like every place else. And then the summer kind of ends the end of May, the 1st of May. So somewhere thereabouts from May to August.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, not to be vague, but, I haven't seen a November down here like this in a long time, but we're fishing all this. We're going to do about 92 trips this year.
That's wonderful.
November.
I'm proud for you, buddy. I am proud for you. Craigie, as always, we appreciate it. Please tell me I can check with you next week.
I can't wait.
Captain Craig Sutton. All right, it's time to hit Northeast Florida and check in with David Voorhees.
Hey, Ricky.
Hey, David. How are you?
Doing good, buddy.
David, I understand your fishing's been pretty good. How is it?
It's been real good, actually. I mean, the water's cleared up. The water's gotten cold. What's
your temp?
60 degrees.
Woo! That is cold for here now. I ain't kidding you. Yep.
And I don't think these fish have felt, some of these fish we've been catching, they've never felt that kind of temperature before.
I'll be darned.
Was very, very sluggish. You had to fish slow, but there was some sight fishing done this week, and that was I absolutely love that. Next to the tailing reds in the grass is probably my next favorite thing to do, is to go out there on these flats and see schools of reds and get a cast to them. But even though you cast to them, you'd probably spook them off. But if you just let them settle back down, they'd come back and take your bait.
Gotcha. Okay.
But it was a lot of work. I mean, it wasn't easy, but we managed to get quality this week, not quantity.
Are you hearing anything from the sheepshead or trout fishermen?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of trout, but the same story with the trout. A lot of shorts, a lot of undersized trout. And when you do find some nice ones, you're going to get into some numbers of nice ones, but they're only sporadic places are you going to get into where you're catching slot trout. The majority of what I'm hearing, most of the guys are saying most of the trout are little short trout, and that's sort of what I've seen this week too. But in sheephead or sort of from what I'm hearing with the sheephead, it's like here today, gone tomorrow. You'll get on them, and you'll get a good bunch of them, and then and then they either move on you or they go quiet on you. But flounder bite was good this week. We released quite a few. It's going to be opening up Wednesday, so that's going to be nice. Not having to release these 3 and 4 pound flounders we've been catching, but we have been seeing some nice flounder, and some of the good ones we've been catching have been coming in the deep holes back in the creeks.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've been doing with this tide we've had this week is, of course, fishing that last of the outgoing, sitting on these mud flats, waiting for these fish to sort of ease off of them. And if you've got the sunlight, you can sight fish. But if you've got overcast days, sort of like what we had yesterday, you're not going to see the fish.
Gotcha.
Saturday, we had the little bit of sunlight would pop up and we could see the fish. But, yesterday was a lot tougher because of the overcast, and all you saw was glare. But I knew where the fish were, went in there, and we soaked some mud minnows, and we managed to catch some really nice reds.
Gotcha. Very good. All right. Hey, David, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
If, incidentally, for your information, the offshore was very good over the weekend. The tuna are biting very well. There's some wahoo on the break, and there's some sailfish in 140 feet. But what I wanted to ask you was, I live in Kansas, and I want to fly down and fish with Captain David Voorhees and get in on some of this incredible Northeast Florida inshore action. I got to narrow it down some. Give me the month.
1 month. Let's see. Now, there's really some good months to fish. And I like this time of year. I'd probably, Ricky, have to say September. You still have a lot. And the reason is you're sort of, you're sometimes you're almost in that transition period from summer to fall type weather. Some fish are really moving. You got a chance to get some tailing reds in the grass, which is always a plus for me. But you also still get a shot at some big bull reds that'll be in the St. Johns River and that way. But we haven't started getting those cold fronts yet. Still got a lot of the summer species around, the snapper, the jacks, the ladyfish and stuff like that. I'd probably go with September.
September makes perfect sense to me, Cap. That's outstanding. Please tell me we can check in with you next week and get another report.
Absolutely, Ricky, and I hope to have some real good sight fishing stories for you next week.
Good deal. Thank you, David. Captain David Voorhees from Northeast Florida. Hey, I tell you what, there is one thing that just about all our podcasters have in common besides the fact we ate too much. We rely on Shimano gear when the best day is on the line. Whether it's Jim Ross chasing a tarpon with a Saragossa spinner or Alan Sherman catching muttons on his bait runners, Shimano gear is everywhere in Florida. You see, Shimano builds a reel for just about every fish that swims, and it seems like every year they come out with new models with names that it takes me 6 months to be able to pronounce correctly. But you know what? There's also a couple models that have stood the test of time and stand at the top of the brand even today. If I'm fishing an inshore spinner, be it fresh or salt, you can count on the fact I'm throwing a Shimano Stratic. That's just because it's been around the block and it just never fails. And if there's a blue water boat looking for a sea monster, I can almost promise you there's Shimano Tiagras pulling the big fish baits. Why do the best blue water guys count on Tiagras every year? For the same reason I always throw a Stratic when I need to hook a redfish for my granddaughter. Because when the very best day is on the line, you can count on the time-tested Tiagras and Stratics from Shimano. Our thanks to David Voorhees for a great Northeast Florida report. Now that means it's time for East Central and Captain Jim Ross. Jimmy, how are you?
Doing fantastic today, Rick.
Good. How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was absolutely awesome. Had a great meal with some great friends and just really, really enjoyed the heck out of it. So looking forward to getting back out on the week, back out after that long weekend and working off some of this turkey that I put on. But I'll tell you, I did actually get back out Friday and Monday, and it was good both afternoons. Mornings a little slow, afternoons were really good.
I got to tell you, Jim, I did a lot better than you. I watched every bite of turkey. I only ate a little bit of it. I was really very proud of myself.
Oh, I watched every bite.
Now
It was just a whole bunch of them.
I ate 9 pounds of cornbread stuffing. Does that count? Oh, God, that
4
was
different
good.
kinds of pies. And,
Oh, yeah. That's right. I'm with you. All right, tell me about your fishing.
Well, the fishing's been really good in the afternoons. Like I said, the morning bite, we've had some cooler weather push through again.
Uh-huh.
The morning bite has been a little slow, with the exception of those deep water trout and those deep water sheephead. Those 2 species in particular have kind of shined in the morning, but the redfish, the black drum, some of the others, it's mid-morning to midday, and then they're really kind of turning on. And actually, most of the time black drum don't really like to chase things too much, but we've actually today we actually caught them just reeling paddle tails for trout, and the black drum got all fired up about something and decided that they were just going to chase down everything that we were throwing.
I'll be darned.
Over the boat today. So cannot complain a bit about the black drum bite midday and afternoon. Redfish, different story. You throw out in front of them. If they see it hop, if it moves, if it lifts off of the ground, they spook.
Isn't that weird?
But if you drag it through the sand, they'll run over and they'll pin it to the ground. It can be a paddle tail, it can be a curly tail, it can be a shrimp. They'll pin it to the ground, and then you can set the hook on them, and it's game on. But if they see it lift and start to swim as a normal paddle tail would,
right,
done. They're done. Now that's going to change. We'll get a couple of more days of consistent weather here in the next 4 days. Look like they're pretty good, and that pattern's going to change. They're going to go back to eating swimming baits again. But for now, or if you see that those fish are fussy, just slow it way down, drag it through the sand, because there's no grass you have to worry about,
right.
And you'll see a reaction. They're either going to spook from it or they're going to run to it and hit it.
Jim, that's so funny, and I'll never understand. I have kayaked fish back in shallow flats and creeks for 20 years, and there are days that they will run into the kayak and just eat anything, and they don't care. You can hit them on the head with a paddle and they don't care. There are days where you dip that paddle in the water 3 creek bends away from where you see that redfish, and as soon as that paddle dips in the water, he sinks. He's gone. I'll
gone.
Never figure out what determines their alertness. Some days they're so alert, it's incredible. Other days, like, I can eat that. They're just...
Well, and Rick, on those days when they're fired up, especially up in your neck of the woods, fishing the IFAs and the redfish cups and the different things over the years, and fishing up around there, I was actually in Clapboard Creek one day, and the tide was about 3 or 4 inches below the base of the Spartina grass. It was coming in incoming tide. The redfish were cruising half in and half out of the water. When they get their backs out of the water and their eyes are out of the water.
Oh yeah.
They're looking for those fiddler crabs that are still crawling on that mud bank before the water gets to the Spartina, and then they go ahead and bury themselves up. I was taking an orange colored soft plastic and throwing it onto the mud, and a foot or two before the redfish would get to it, I would drag it down towards the edge of the water, and they would leap out of the water and pound it down into the mud trying to grab it, because they thought it was the claw on that orange claw that the fiddlers have.
Yeah.
And to watch a redfish leap out of, go full on dry land to try to eat something, that cannot possibly be the same fish that, like you say, 3 creek bends down and you dip the paddle in the water, or you take a sip of Coke and all of a sudden they spook.
Yep. You're
but
right.
Somehow it is. Somehow those fish are the same fish. And so right now they're fussy in the mornings. Midday they're better, but still subtle presentations are what they want.
Now, Jim, as I let you go, one more question that I've got for you. If I lived out of state and I was coming to Central Florida for a fishing weekend, and I wanted to be able to count on the weather because I'm coming so far, but I still wanted good fishing, give me a month.
Well, May is your standard answer.
Yeah.
That's going to be your typically your best month. But I'll tell you, we have in early December, and we're coming, close to that time
Yeah,
frame.
that's this week, by the way.
Yeah, in early December, we generally get a week or sometimes a week and a half where we don't get a front that comes through. And that particular week, especially if you're coming to fish the Northern Indian River or the Mosquito Lagoon, that's the week you want. Because the redfish, the water temperature comes back up 4 or 5 degrees. The redfish come out of the holes. They stop acting silly. They get really aggressive, and they go on this almost secondary type of mullet run style feeding frenzy where they will attack just about anything. And it's a great time for a guy to just get out on the flat, take a gold spoon and throw it to the other side of the lagoon, or at least try to, and then reel it back. And if there's a redfish there, he's probably going to eat it.
How about
so
that?
I would say that, let's keep it at May. But for those guys that may be coming down in this next 2 or 3 weeks, if we get that stretch of weather, it's on. It is absolutely game on.
Gotcha. Great report, Jimmy, as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'm looking forward to it, Rick.
Me too, Jim. Okay, go work that turkey off. I'll talk to you later. Now, let's skip on down to my favorite little fishing village, Stuart, Florida, and check in with John Earhart. John, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here, Rick.
Well, we're mighty glad to have you. Tell me what's going on with your fishing.
We got some pretty good fishing right now. When the weather allows, the offshore fishing's been pretty steady. We're still getting some good numbers of mahi. Some of them are bigger mahis too. I've seen some 15, 18 pounders. Most of them are heavy lifters, 8, 12-pound fish. So, we got some nice fish running through our area right now. I've seen a few wahoo caught as well while we're trolling for mahi. And we're getting a few sailfish. We're not getting a lot of them, but, there's definitely some sailfish around. But, you're going to need to put a full day in it if you want to catch a couple sailfish while you're out there picking away at the mahis and the bonita, and a blackfin tuna here and there. And most of this action is going to be, 80 to maybe 220 feet of water. When you get in the deeper water, you're going to get more mahis and wahoo as opposed to bonitas and blackfins. They seem like they've been in a little shallower this week. So definitely keep an eye on your water conditions. Look for color changes, weed lines, things like that. And you might have to run and gun a little bit until you find a good condition that's holding the pelagics you're looking for.
Gotcha. That sounds outstanding. Most of the mahi holding on rips or around floating stuff, or what?
Mostly on a color change. You find a good color change with a rip nearby. That's been holding the mahis. And with this north wind, typically we'll get some sargassum weed build up on these rips, and that's really when you're going to hammer down on the mahis. You get one nice rip with some scattered weed in there, just pull along the edges of those weeds, and chances are you're going to catch plenty of mahis.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that sounds outstanding. You hear anything from inshore?
Yeah, the inshore fishing's been pretty good. We're still catching quite a few snook. Most of them are smaller fish, not quite slot size. Every day is different. It just depends on what the water temperature is doing and how our tides are working. We've got a lot of jack crevalles in the river right now. We're starting to see some pompano in the river, so that's nice. Fishing sandy bottom is going to produce plenty of pompano, ladyfish, jacks, few bonefish. We're either fishing shrimp or cut bait on the bottom, like clam strips or sand fleas. And we'll do that on like a pompano rig. Or you'll cast a goofy jig out and kind of slowly retrieve it along the bottom, and that's going to produce plenty of pompano in the next few weeks to the next 2 months.
Gotcha. That doesn't sound bad at all. Hey, John, if you had to take weather and fishing, we'll call it offshore for conversation's sake, into account, and I was coming from Kansas. I had to fly all the way here because I wanted to fish with John Earhart for a day. What month would you pick?
It really depends on what species of fish I'm targeting. But if I wanted to have good weather and fair fishing, I would say June, July. Because you can almost always get out in the ocean. In the wintertime you can have phenomenal fishing, but you need to be a seasoned angler, or you need to have a week set aside so that you can actually get out in the ocean. Because after that north wind comes through, yeah, you're going to have some great fishing, but you got to get out the first day that you can.
It might look like some of the Coast Guard footage you see sometimes. So we don't want that. We don't want the old Victory at Sea stories, that's for sure. Hey, John, I appreciate the heck out of it. Thanks for a great report. I look forward to talking with you next week, if that's okay.
Yes, sir. I'll check in with you all next week.
You got it. Thank you, John Earhart from Stuart, Florida. Now, let's head to Miami and check in with the mayor of Miami Beach himself, Captain Alan Sherman. Alan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. How are you?
Good, good. I understand you've been plenty busy. Has it been fishing?
Well, no, it's fishing, it's life, it's all these things, together.
Yep, yep.
The holidays, Thanksgiving requires a lot of work if you're hosting, which we were.
Yes, it does.
And then you mix in the charters and keeping your tackle and your gear running. Yeah, so it is a busy time.
And then you get a hot wheel bearing when you need it the least, huh?
And the sun setting, yes.
Yeah, I understand. All right, tell me about fishing. I'll let you get back to greasing your bearings.
All right, thank you. So, no, we got some really good fishing going on. We've been waiting for it for a long time. I mean, it's been like this for probably a month. Offshore fishing, sailfish, kingfish, zero mackerel, Spanish mackerel, bonitas, blackfin tunas, a few wahoo, and then there's the mahi too. So the offshore topwater fishing's been good from the reef all the way into, say, 30 feet of water. I mean, it's a special time of the year when a guy that wants to target yellowtails can anchor his boat and actually be catching sailfish, kingfish, mackerels, dolphin, all of those fish. So, yeah, it's exciting.
That's very exciting. That is some outstanding fishing. Anything going on inshore?
The inshore fishing's been good. There's been the inshore gag groupers for, the season closes pretty soon, so that's going to end, but you can still catch them for catch and release. There's been some nice gags on the patch reefs, red groupers, and then we finally have started to see some mackerel, some juvenile kingfish, although we did have a 7-pound kingfish in the bay the other day, so that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yep. And then, yes, some small bluefish, and then the snappers and jacks and blue runners. So, it's been easy to bend the fishing rods this past week and for the last couple of weeks. We've also got some really good freshwater fishing going on. If you like peacock bass, I don't know what the deal is with them. Maybe we haven't had that really, really cold weather that pushes them back, but they've taken over all the canals and areas where the largemouth would usually be the prevalent fish. So today you're catching like 60%, 70%, maybe even 80% peacocks and only 20% largemouth. And the numbers have been big and the sizes have been large as well.
How big's a big peacock down there now, Alan?
5 or 6 pounds.
That's a good fish.
A pretty good sized fish.
That's a good
they
fish.
would grow larger if it wasn't for the fact that every 10 years or so we get a big freeze and they die off.
Yep.
But, there's always enough left for them to come back strong.
Well, I got to tell you, our water temperature up here in Northeast Florida right now is 60, which is the coldest I have seen it December 1st in a while. Now, does that mean we have a cold winter coming? I don't know. We'll just have to see.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question for you before you get back to greasing. If somebody's coming to see you from Kansas, I don't know, somewhere, and they need to pick a month. They want good fishing, but they want stable weather. What's their best month to pick if they've got to come from a long distance?
So for me, it used to be October. October was the month that I would tell everybody, that's when you want to book me. Everything's going off at that time. Just getting out of the warmer months into the cooler months, the bait fish schools are coming down in big numbers and a lot of fish follow them. So you've got not just your local fish, the snook and tarpon and all the others. You've got the migratory species as well coming in and mixing with them. So you can keep the rods pretty good. Now, that's changed. In October, we didn't have much going on, but now it's November, and it's like October fishing in November. Mm-hmm. So now, what do you tell the people? Instead of coming in October, you need to come in November, because we still have not seen much of a mullet run, and it seems like they're still ahead of us and haven't made it here yet. But and we haven't seen a lot of mackerel. We're just starting to see the migratory species sliding through. We do have giant schools of ballyhoo offshore, and that's one of the things about the guys anchoring on the reefs out there is shallow as 30 feet of water. These the mahi, the kingfish, the sailfish, the bonitas just chase those bait fish right into these guys that are anchored, and boom, they're fighting sailfish from an anchored boat.
Yeah, that is
so. Yeah,
crazy.
November's
a month. All right, buddy. I'm going to try and make it to see you in November. Thank you, Alan.
Good enough. Talk to you then.
Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Captain Alan Sherman.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is the mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to his name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to Alan Sherman for a great Miami Beach report. Alan's fired up. He loves this time of year. Now, let's head on down where it's never a bad day to fish, down in Islamorada at none other than Bud and Mary's. That's where we find Captain Brandon Storn. Bean, how are you?
I'm great, Rick. How we doing?
I'm doing okay. Tell me about fishing out of Bud and Mary's.
Oh, it's been good. We just kind of had this cold front. We've had some good variety. We've had some good reds and snook and sea tail biting back there. There's been some triple tails on the buoys. This past week, I finally caught my personal best, one over 20 pounds, a 21 pounder.
Son, that is a world-class fish. There aren't very many people around that can say they caught a triple tail over 20.
That's right. And it's definitely the biggest one I've ever held in my hands. And it was for no other than baseball MVP and World Series winner J.D. Martinez, the designated hitter for the Red Sox. Yeah.
How about that? That's way cool. That's way cool.
Oh, yeah.
I hope he enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah, he's going to definitely hang it on the wall somewhere in his house.
Oh, cool. That's way cool. Now, you've had, you told me that today was kind of tough, huh?
Today was just one of those days. The wind direction, it seemed like it's coming straight out the east, and it definitely felt like it was blowing close to 20 knots. So with that, it was rough out front. My original plan was to go to the Patries because I thought it was going to be a north wind. And that was so sloppy, not happening. But since it's an east wind, that wind kind of straddles the island. And the back country, same thing, super choppy. Just kind of stuck by some close by mangrove canals around town. I had some older folks who really didn't want to get beat up or go on a long run. And I'm throwing freebies in the water, like, free pilchers, free shrimp. I feel like Oprah Winfrey out there. Everybody gets a free bait. And I'm looking at these fish, just looking at my freebies, and they just looked cold and lethargic and couldn't get fired up. It was just one of those weird days, probably one of the toughest days I've ever had on the charter.
Yep, that's weird. There ain't many bad days in Islamorada, but it sounds to me like you might have found one of them. But it won't last.
Yeah.
It won't last. I saw where your boss had a couple of swordfish the other day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's been some good swordfish bites. I know also one of my friends down here, Captain James Mullen. He got one as soon as he touched bottom. First that? 2 minutes of the day. Yeah, as soon as it hit bottom, that thing must have saw that bait coming on the way down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so there's been some good swordfish biting. Definitely a lot more sales showing up. You're seeing now people hang up 4, 5, 6, 8 flags up. So that's great. I'm also been seeing that some people have been getting on the wahoo action when it's been a calmer day. There's been some people catching some wahoo and some black groupers too. So, winter's coming. Here it is.
Yep.
And love to see it. Spanish mackerel's been red hot in the backcountry. If you do a half day, you just go to close by in the Gulf and so come back in the water and you can catch some really, really nice big Spanish mackerels. They're just an absolute blast on light tackle.
Hey, are you like me? If you go fishing and you have a good day, you don't necessarily have to go back the next day. But if you go fishing, you have a bad day like you did today, you got to get back. You're not going to let that funk stay with you. You ever get that feeling?
Yeah. I definitely mentioned to get the funk off right now. I definitely, it just wanted your redemption. And right now I'm like, wow, I'm standing outside and it's really laid out. And of course, this morning I had a morning half and it was blowing 20 knots. And you're like, man, I bet the fish are chewing right now.
Yep. That's me. If I have a good day, I can sit back in my recliner and go, yeah, I'm the man.
Yeah.
If I have a bad day, I'm like, I got to get back. I'm going back tomorrow. Thank you, Brandon. We appreciate it, buddy.
Absolutely. I'll see you next week.
Talk to you next week. Captain Brandon Storin from Bud and Mary's in Alamorado. Our thanks to Brandon Storin for a great report from Alamorado. I love it when a captain is honest to say it was a bad day. Well, he had one today. There's not many of those that happen out of there, that's for sure. Let's run over to 10,000 Islands and check in with Steve Dahl. You don't ever have a bad day, do you, Steve?
It's funny you bring that up because I had one today too.
Well, maybe there's something to it. Maybe it was in the atmosphere.
Yeah, I think, as far as today, just dealing with a front, we got a little bit of rain down by us, which we didn't anticipate this morning, and that kind of brought in some higher winds than expected. Well, classic post-front pattern, and you just got to slow down a little bit. And we found some fish, but we resorted redfish and snook really weren't cooperating, and the waves were a little too much to kind of get offshore and play with cobia and permit. So we went trout fishing today, and that's a pretty reliable thing in the wintertime, just about anywhere in the state, especially down in 10,000 Islands. I mean, the trout are always biting regardless of the conditions, no matter how you're going to catch them. And today we kind of had a nice falling tide and lost water pretty quick after with the accelerated winds. We had a north wind, which on an outgoing, in our region pushes everything out of the backcountry. So when that happens, a lot of people kind of panic and they say, oh my gosh, there's just no water out there, or it's dropping quicker. And you just got to find some deeper holes. And today we salvaged a fun day, or a bad day, made it a fun day by catching a bunch of trout in some deeper holes. I think a lot of people always associate trout fishing with grass flats and, popping corks. And, you could tie on a 3/8 ounce bucktail jig, a little thumbnail piece of shrimp, and fish some of these deeper holes, and these holes are anywhere from 8 to 15 feet of water. They're pretty deep stuff, and a lot of the area passes. And we've got main arteries, if you will, that come out of the backcountry, and those are kind of rivers or passes, and all that has deeper water in it. And if you find those deeper water areas, those fish have to go somewhere. And the trout literally stack up in those, and you can have 50 trout days, no problem if you concentrate on that stuff. So in the mix there too is some big black drum. There are some smaller black drum you can keep for the table, but in the wintertime we get those big bruisers, and not uncommon to hook in a 25-30 pound black drum while you're trout fishing. So there's always a way to make lemonade out of lemons. Today was a perfect example of that. So
You know, I've never thought about it before, but black drum kind of remind me of myself.
Okay.
Yeah. They make strange grunting noises, and man, they ugly. I mean, they ugly.
I thought you were going to go with that second one, and you're far more attractive than a black drum.
Not to a black drum, I'm not. But I would have to think, and I'm a little bit surprised that our black drum fishing hasn't rapidly accelerated in the last 10, 15 years. You know, almost nobody keeps any of those big brutes anymore. And you would think that I wish they'd take over the inshore like the red snapper have taken over the offshore.
You know what? That's a great point. I really wish they would too, because we really only get them in the winter months.
Mm-hmm.
At least the bigger fish, and the table fare fish are they're not necessarily year round by us. They're definitely more of a winter type deal as well. But weeding through some of those big brutes, a lot of those big ones, tend to be, old and, the meat's not good, wormy, things of that avail. And, you want those, mid-teen type fish, upper teens, those are the good table fare fish. And
but
they're hard to come by some days.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how they just, we've protected them as long as we've protected red snapper, but they don't take over. I wish they would. I mean,
it's a great point. At least not in my region, and understanding what's going on throughout the state, I haven't heard anything where there's a really, really good population of black drum.
No, me neither.
It seems spotty.
Me neither. All right, I got a quick question for you before you go. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I live many miles away. I live in another state somewhere, and I want to fly down to 10,000 Islands for my vacation to fish with Captain Steve Dahl. All right, if I need good weather and I need good fishing, pick me a month.
I'm going to give you two. I hate to do that to you, but I'm going to give you some traveling options. Definitely October. You've heard me say it for a long time. October is the month, at least from the inshore side. And then I absolutely love May. May is every single fish is in play in May. The crowds go away for us. The snowbirds go home, and it's the fish can breathe, if you will, for lack of a better term. And it's just, you can literally pick your poison. Every single species seems to be in play in the month of May. So October and May, those are definitely my two.
Those are my two favorite months of the year. You nailed it. I'm the same way here in Northeast Florida. Cap,
all right,
we appreciate it as always, and I sure hope we can check in with you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Steve. Captain Steve Dahl from 10,000 Islands. That means it's Southwest Florida time, and check in with Greg Stamper. Now, let's move up to West Central and check in with Ray Markham. Ray, how are you?
Fantastic. How you doing, Cap?
Doing fine. Are you guys still struggling with the results of the red tide over there?
Some areas are still struggling. It's not like that everywhere. You find places where there's just like a potload of fish, and then you go for miles and see nothing. But, on a real positive note, one thing that really, really does improve, regardless of the changes of the weather and everything else, is our freshwater fishing. And I think it's pretty much overlooked for a lot of people, particularly those that are kind of bit with the saltwater bug. I had a chance to do some freshwater fishing this last week with my brother and some friends, and I'm telling you, the bass fishing is on fire.
I saw beautiful bass that your brother caught.
Yes, sir. Well, bass fishing's on fire, but I'm talking to some of these guys that are like diehard lake fishermen around here. They are saying that they expect to have one of the best crappie years ever. It apparently what they're saying is that typically crappie bite best like really during the dead mid of winter and towards the tail end of winter, when they really start schooling up and they get ready to spawn. And what they're saying is things look either early this year because they're starting to see schooling fish right now, where they wouldn't normally see them till the end of December, January, and even into February. And the fishing's been really good. So, For the guys they're sitting there lamenting the fact that it's blowing 25 miles an hour, the boat's in the garage and they can't get out. These guys are going out on these little local lakes and things like that, and they are just having a blast.
Oh, that's cool.
Something for everybody.
Yep. And let me tell you something. Ricky Riles has been known to eat a piece of fried crappie before now.
Oh, no.
Yes. You put it in front of me and you watch. And I am one that generally doesn't care anything about freshwater fish. I will eat a crappie like right now.
I hear you. But, we don't have walleye down here, and everybody brags about walleyes. I've had them a couple times, and trust me, I would definitely thin the population out if we had walleye here in Florida.
Yeah. Well, I feel that way about triggerfish. I will pound on some triggerfish, and I love to eat them. But I have had walleye because I was born in Milwaukee, and it's really good. It's really good. I wouldn't trade all the variety of saltwater fish we get for it for walleye and crappie. But having said that, walleye and crappie are very good. What have you heard from saltwater? It's been real spotty, huh?
Well, the best parts that I can tell you right now, the sheep's head fishing's on fire.
Good.
Those fish have been coming in like crazy. I mean, typically I don't really see tons of them until late December, January, but they're coming. And for the that are working the beaches and the crab pots out there, for stone crabs, they're finding lots of triple tail. So, I got a report from Captain Rick Grassett down in Sarasota this week. He did some fishing with his brother over the holiday here. They ran the beaches and some of the buoys out there and caught some really, really nice triple tail and some big bonita too. So there's a smattering of just about everything out there. You got to work for it a little bit right now, but with this changing weather, with it, up and down with temperatures, it's tough anyway, even in the best days. So it's all good. It'll straighten out. Get a few more weeks of the changes, and the fish get more acclimated to it, and the snook stop running 100 miles an hour up the rivers to escape cold changes, and we'll be good.
Gotcha. Thanks, Ray. That's a great report, and I look forward to hearing your fried crappie report from next week. We appreciate it.
You might.
Thank you, buddy. Take care. Our thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report. But hey, it's finally fall, and how many of us have been waiting for the magic of the mullet run to start? There are literally miles of mullet moving just about every coastline of Florida. What you need to cash in on the tarpon, snook, reds, trout, and flounder that are feasting on the poor fingerlings is the perfect mullet imitation. Well, for my money, you can skip all the high-dollar made-in-China mullet imitators. For me and all the podcasters I've talked with, the perfect mullet imitation is made right here in Stuart, Florida. It's the D.O.A. Bait Buster. Mark Nichols, the owner and manufacturer of D.O.A., spent years designing different bait busters to swim shallow, medium, or deep. What makes Bait Buster so special? I think it's the tail. If your Bait Buster is moving, his tail is flapping, and no predator can stand that tail wagging in his face. The D.O.A. Bait Buster is the perfect mullet run imitation. Now, let's head on out to the Panhandle and put a wrap on it by checking in with one Captain Tyler Massey. Tyler, how are you?
Doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
Good. You guys getting chilly out there?
Yeah, it's cooling down a little bit. We're definitely getting into our winter pattern for sure.
Yeah, what's your water temperature inshore down there now, Tyler? Do you know?
So inshore, we're in the low 60s right now.
Uh-huh.
In the morning, starting out, right around 60 and probably getting up around, maybe a few degrees higher in the afternoons when after the sun's been up.
Okay. And what are you catching?
So right now, we're starting to catch a few sheep's heads. They're starting to move, from the upper bay systems down towards the bridges. So, in the wintertime, we catch them around the bridges, and in the spring, they're going to move towards our fast. So there's a bridge, Garcon Point Bridge. It's on the east side of Escambia Bay. We have the I-10, the interstate bridge. They're catching a few sheephead there. There's the Bob Sykes Bridge on the intercoastal. They're catching some there. So all these bigger bridges that are on the main bodies of water is where we're starting to see a few sheephead. And fiddler crabs are the best bait this time of year. It just seems like they work better than shrimp, any time other than the spring.
Yeah. I've found the same thing. When you can get them in the fall, that's the way to go. I'm glad to hear you guys are getting them, and I can promise you that I know you're right, because I happened to drive over that I-10 bridge yesterday on my way home from Mississippi and saw a few boats fishing under the bridge around the pylon. So that's good. I guess your offshore is pretty well shut down now, huh?
Yeah, we're catching some beeliners and that kind of stuff. A lot of people just aren't wanting to go offshore right now. It's a lot of commitment, not be able to keep too much. And but yeah, the fishing's good. There's amberjacks are biting good. They're season's closed. The red snappers are biting good. The season's closed on that. Yeah. You can go there and catch a couple groupers here and there. But a lot of our bait's moving out of the area, so not much for live bait. So it's just there's definitely a lot to catch. Just not much to bring home with you.
Cap, that's an outstanding report. I appreciate it. Hey, let me ask you a question. Give me 1 month. I live up north somewhere, and I get 1 weekend a month to come to Florida to fish. Find me a month that I can count on weather probably being good and fishing being pretty good. What month are you going to pick?
I'd say June for us. June we have the most number of species available that are down here. We're catching lots of mackerels, and bottom fishing's great, and red snapper season's open. All the inshore fishing's still good in early June. I'd say the first week or two of June is a guaranteed good trip down here in the Panhandle.
Outstanding. All right, Cap, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
All right, we'll be here. We'll see you.
Thank you, Tyler. Captain Tyler Massey from out in the Panhandle. And hey, that puts a wrap on what has been kind of a mixed up podcast for this week. A very good fishing up in Northeast Florida. I know the sailfish are biting, wahoo and tuna. Inshore, they are clobbering the redfish. They can see them now. The cold weather has killed off some of the organisms in the water, so that's made for very good fishing. Sheep's head are biting. But you get down to East Central, and Jim Ross says your mornings better stay at the dock now. Water's cold, fish are very lethargic. You move into your afternoons of black drum, unusually aggressive, and the redfish will bite if you make a very, very subtle presentation. Down in Stewart, it's sailfish season. They're starting. They got their first tournament coming up next week. That'll be a lot of fun, and they're catching an unusual number of mahi, so glad to see that. More mahi than normal off of Miami, too. I know our editor, Jeff Weekly, was involved in some good bites over the weekend down there. Bad day for Captain Storin and Alamorada. He doesn't have many of them, so they really stand out. Said the fish weren't biting because the wind was blowing 20 knots, but that won't last. Right now, his triple tail fishing, oh my gosh, he caught a 21-pounder this week. It's very, very good. Come around to the West Coast. The guys over there are never unhappy down in Southwest Florida. Steve Dahl and Greg Stamper both talking about very good fishing. They're doing well on triple tails. They're doing well on a few snook and some pretty good numbers of redfish. It's been a good trip around the state. Our fishing will depend on the weather from now until springtime, and it looks like next week's going to be pretty good. So we'll have another Action Spotter podcast for you then. Tonight's Action Spotter podcast and all our Action Spotter podcasts are brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Shimano, bringing people and nature together. Tournament Master Chum, it's the best chum on earth. Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. And Young Boats, you want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids, you need to check out youngboats.com. For Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, I'll see you on the rip.